Hello, lovely people out there. How is everyone doing? I'm Kate Hill, and I am bringing you the best unbiased and honest content on property with fantastic news, hints and tips. Stay tuned today for all your latest property news. The rental crisis is deepening. There are slim pickings for tenants out there with concerns that some will be forced to accept subpar properties as it becomes harder than ever to find a rental property in many Australian cities. The national vacancy rate is stuck at 0.9% for the third month in a row. Remember that a vacancy rate of 3% is what's considered a balanced market. Figures from Domain show that Sydney's vacancy rate fell to 1.1% in September, while Melbourne held steady at 1.3%. But it is actually the smaller capital cities and regional areas where tenants are really struggling to find a rental vacancy. Vacancy rates 0.6% in Brisbane, 0.5% in Hobart, 0.4% in Perth, and a near non-existent 0.3% in Adelaide. The NAB's head of market economics says it will continue to be tough on renters. Well, no, Sherlock. So why is this happening, everyone? It is not rocket science. We have been heading in this direction for years. It is a lack of supply, plain and simple. Increasing interest rates do play a part, sure, but they are not the reason this is happening. They make it slightly harder to borrow money, and that is it. An investor cannot pass on an entire interest rate rise to a tenant. They don't. That can only be done in certain market conditions and at certain times of a lease renewal. It is not the reason. Number one reason, as I have mentioned in previous posts, investors have not and are not being encouraged to buy investment properties for renters and thereby add to the supply. Just think of that most recent land tax reform fiasco in Queensland. Do you know how many people that put off buying rental properties in that state? I can't tell you. Well, I can't. It's hundreds. For the sake of all tenants in Queensland, thank heavens that got shelved. Threatening negative gearing, abolishing, making it harder on every level for investors to borrow money. It does not encourage any budding investor to put their money into property. Private investors create over 90% of the rental supply in Australia. The country needs them, and yet so much is being done to discourage and vilify these investors. Why? We need them. Rents will continue to rise because of higher international migration numbers, which add to the demand. Household sizes are shrinking, which means that there are often more people renting, which adds to the demand. Fewer properties are being built and developed as a result of material shortages and rising building costs and labour shortages. And all of this decreases the supply. Rising demand, lower supply. Many rental properties have been sold to owner-occupiers over the last couple of years, which decreases the supply. Investors continue to be cautious, and this will have an ongoing effect on the supply. Rents are going to keep going up for the foreseeable future. The governments, the state governments, the federal governments need to stop fleecing and vilifying property investors and encourage the creating of rental property supply. While of course all of that I just explained is bad news for renters, the good news for landlords is that rents are growing faster than home prices, leading to yields getting much, much, much better. The latest NAB sentiment survey, which polls property industry professionals, predicts that rents will grow by 3.5% in the next 12 months and maybe 3.8% nationally in the next 2 years. Personally, I think that's a bit of an underestimation. CoreLogic says that rental yields are bouncing back. Nationally, during the September quarter, Dwelling yields grew by 24 basis points to 3.57%. Although yields are now above the record lows recorded in February, they are still well below the pre-pandemic decade average of 4.24%. The increases in interest rates in October means that property buyer borrowing capacity has dropped again. While rates are still historically low, the average monthly borrower with a $500,000 mortgage will pay $750 more a month than they would have done before the rates started rising again. Investors can't just pass that on to a tenant, you get that, right? Analysis by PropTrack says that this means a prospective buyer will be able to borrow 21% less than before the rate rises. Although the change in interest rates has some borrowers shopping around to refinance, those who bought at the peak of the market with low deposits may find it harder to switch. Some wishing to refinance will no longer pass a lender's stress test, and they will be forced to stay with their current lender. The latest price data provides further indication that the price correction being experienced in some property markets has in fact slowed. Both PropTrack and CoreLogic figures show that the pace of decline has slowed in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and generally nationally. Other capital city and regional markets are still recording price growth. Don't get that in the newspapers, do you? PropTrack says that the pace of price decline slowed in September, falling only 0.19%. At the same time, Hobart, regional South Australia, and regional Tasmania recorded monthly increases. Both PropTrack and CoreLogic figures also showed that apartment markets are faring better than house markets overall, and that regional markets continue to outperform city markets. In the year to date, according to CoreLogic, house prices have fallen 3.9% in the capital cities overall, not in all capital cities, but have risen 3.2% in the combined regional markets. Nationally, apartment markets have dropped only 1.9% in the year to date, but the combined regions have lifted apartment prices 4.6%. Now, you have to realise that this is just one great big pot of property, right? There are many capital cities and also regional areas where there have been no price declines. It has all continued to grow. Now, I will keep you posted on all things property from around Australia as our year progresses. As always, it's nearly over. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and the like button if you are enjoying all the free content. And I will see you all again really soon. Bye.